Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Cat Tales, a Warrior Cats reread podcast. I'm your host, Coffee, and I welcome you back. Last time, where we left off, we finished off with Chapter 11 of Into the Wild, where Firepaw and the other apprentices are about to go to their first gathering, and we meet Yellowfang and get some more lore on some other cats in the previous chapters, so now we are going to pick up at Chapter 12. Firepaw peered over the brow of a bush-covered slope. Greypaw and Ravenpaw crouched beside him. Next to them, a group of ThunderClan elders, queens, and warriors waited in the undergrowth for Bluestar to give the signal. Firepaw had not been to this place since his first journey with Lionheart and Tigerclaw. The steep-sided glade looked different now. The rich greenness of the woods had been bleached away by the cold light of the full moon, and the leaves on the trees glowed silver. At the bottom stood the large oaks that marked where the corner of each clan's territory touched the other three. The air was thick with the warm scents of cats from the other clans. Firepaw could see them quite clearly in the moonlight, moving about below in the grassy clearing that lay between the four oaks. In the center of the clearing, a large jagged rock rose from the forest floor like a broken tooth. Ravenpaw admires all the cats that are down there in the gathering place, and Greypaw points out Crooked Star, RiverClan's leader. Firepaw followed Greypaw's nod and saw a huge Tom, even bigger than Lionheart, sitting at the center of the clearing. His striped coat shone pale in the moonlight. Even from this distance, his old face showed the signs of a harsh life, and his mouth looked twisted, as if it had once been broken and had healed badly. I miss when warriors, like these cats, had really distinct appearances and descriptions. I think it's really, really neat. Greypaw says, "Hey, did you see Sandpaw spit when I told her I hoped she had a nice evening at home?" Which is a direct callback to what Sandpaw said to Firepaw and Greypaw when they couldn't come to their first gathering. Giving her a taste of her own medicine, Greypaw is a savage. Firepaw says, "You bet." Ravenpaw interrupts them and points out Broken Star, Shadowclan's leader. Firepaw looked down at the dark brown tabby. His fur was unusually long and his face was broad and flattened. There was a stillness in the way he sat and stared around him that made Firepaw's fur prickle uncomfortably. "He looks pretty nasty," Firepaw muttered. "Yeah," agreed Greypaw. "He's certainly got a reputation among all the clans for not suffering fools gladly. And he's not been leader for that long, 4 moons, ever since his father Ragged-Star died." I had to look up the phrase, "not suffering fools gladly." According to Wikipedia, the definition of that is to become angry with people you think are stupid. So apparently Broken Star just has this reputation for just not letting stupid people or stupid cats getting away with stuff, which doesn't bode well. Not suffering fools gladly. As a 4th grader reading this, I don't remember this phrase being in there at all. I think I just literally skipped over it and didn't even bother to look it up or try and figure out what it meant. I think it seems like a pretty British / old head saying, so I just wanted to look that up and explain it. Anyway, Firepaw asks, "What does the leader of WindClan look like?" "Tall Star? I've never seen him, but I know he's black and white with a very long tail," answered Greypaw. They try and find him, but they can't see him. They realize that they can't scent any WindClan cats. Lionheart comes up behind them and says the WindClan cats might just be late. Greypaw counters and asks what if they don't turn up at all. Lionheart says, "Hush, we must all be patient. These are difficult times. Now keep quiet. Bluestar will give the signal to move soon." As he spoke, Bluestar stood, and, holding her tail high, flicked it from one side to the other. Firepaw's heart missed a beat as the ThunderClan cats rose as one and bounded through the bushes, down toward the meeting place. He raced alongside them, feeling the wind rush in his ears and his paws tingle with anticipation. The ThunderClan cats paused instinctively on the edge of the clearing, outside the boundary of the oaks. Bluestar sniffed the air. Then she nodded and the troop moved forward into the clearing. Firepaw felt thrilled. The other cats looked even more impressive close up, milling about the great rock. A large white warrior strode past. Firepaw and Ravenpaw looked at him in awe. "Look at his paws," Ravenpaw murmured. Firepaw looked down and realized the huge paws of this great Tom were jet black. "It must be Blackfoot," mewed Greypaw, Shadowclan's new deputy. Blackfoot stalked over to Broken Star and sat down beside him. The Shadowclan leader acknowledged him with a twitch of one ear, but said nothing. Ravenpaw asks Whitestorm when the meeting begins. Whitestorm says, "Be patient, the sky is clear tonight, so we have plenty of time." Lionheart leaned over and added, "We warriors like to spend a little time boasting about our victories, while the elders swap tales about the ancient days before the Two Legs came here." And then they watched the elders of ThunderClan go meet with the elders in the other clans. Whitestorm and Lionheart disappear to go talk to another pair of warriors that Firepaw doesn't know. Bluestar comes up to the apprentices and says, "Don't waste any of your time tonight. This is a good opportunity to meet your enemies. Listen to them. Remember what they look like and how they behave. There's a great deal to be learned from these meetings." "And say little," warned Tigerclaw. "Don't give anything away that might be used against us once the moon has waned." "Don't worry, we won't," Firepaw promised hastily, looking into Tigerclaw's eyes. The feeling that Tigerclaw didn't trust his loyalty lingered with him still. Bluestar and Tigerclaw move on. The apprentices wonder what to do, but they all agree to just listen and not say much. Firepaw decides he's going to go see where Tigerclaw went, which I immediately get the feeling this is a bad idea. It's like when white people in a horror movie choose to walk directly into a dangerous situation. It's like, no, man, come on. Don't do that. Greypaw says he's going to go find Lionheart, and Ravenpaw says he's going to go talk with some of the other apprentices, so they all agree to meet up later. Firepaw heads off. He scented Tigerclaw easily and found him sitting at the center of a group of huge warriors behind the great rock. Tigerclaw was speaking. It was a tale Firepaw had heard many times at camp. Tigerclaw was describing his recent battle against the RiverClan hunting party. "I wrestled like a Lion Clan cat. 3 warriors tried to hold me, but I threw them off. I fought them until 2 lay knocked out, and the other had run off into the forest like a kit crying for its mother." This time Tigerclaw didn't mention killing Oakhart in vengeance for Redtail's death. Perhaps it's so he doesn't offend the RiverClan warriors, Firepaw decided. Firepaw listened politely to the end of the story, but a familiar scent was distracting him. As soon as Tigerclaw had finished speaking, Firepaw turned and crept away toward the sweet smell, which was coming from a group of cats nearby. He found Greypaw sitting among these cats, but that was not the scent he had been following. Sitting opposite Greypaw, between 2 RiverClan toms, was Spotted Leaf. Firepaw glanced at her shyly and settled himself beside his friend. Firepaw says there's still no scent of WindClan. Greypaw says the meeting hasn't begun, they might still come, and he points out Shadowclan's new medicine cat, his name is Running Nose. Firepaw says, "I can see why they call him Running Nose. The medicine cat's nose was wet at the tip and encrusted around the edges." "Yep," replied Greypaw with a scornful growl. "I can't see why they appointed him when he can't even cure his own cold." Yet another certified Greypaw banger. But also that's kind of real. I would not want a sick person taking care of me either, so I get it. Running Nose was telling the cats about a herb that medicine cats had used in the old days to cure kitten cough. I'm not entirely sure what kitten cough is, but it's probably similar to like pneumonia. He's talking about how the 2 legs came and filled the place with hard earth and strange flowers, the herb has disappeared, and kittens die needlessly in cold weather. A RiverClan queen says it never would have happened in the time of the great clan cats. A silver tabby agrees and says the great cats would have killed any 2 legs that dared enter their territory. If Tigerclan roamed this forest still, 2 legs would not have built this far into our land. Then Firepaw heard Spotted Leaf's quiet mew. If Tigerclan still roamed these forests, we would hardly have made our territory here either. "What's Tigerclan?" mewed a small voice beside them. Firepaw noticed a little tabby apprentice from one of the other clans sitting beside him. "Tigerclan is one of the great cat clans that used to roam the forest," Greypaw explained quietly. "Tigerclan is cats of the night, big as horses, with jet black stripes. Then there's LionClan. Greypaw hesitated, frowning as he tried to remember. "Oh, I've heard of them," mewed the tabby. "They were as big as Tigerclan cats, with yellow fur and golden manes like rays of the sun. So you're starting to see like what's happening here." Greypaw nodded. "And then there's the other one, Spotty Clan or something like that." "I suspect you're thinking of Leopard Clan, young Greypaw," meowed a voice from behind them. "Lionheart," Greypaw greeted his mentor with an affectionate touch of his nose. Lionheart shook his head in mock despair. "Don't you youngsters know your history? Leopard Clan are the swiftest cats, huge and golden, spotted with black paw prints. You can thank Leopard Clan for the speed and hunting skills you now possess." "Thank them? Why?" asked the tabby. Lionheart gazed down at the little apprentice and answered, "There is a trace of all the great cats in every cat today. We would not be night hunters without our Tiger Clan ancestors, and our love of the sun's warmth comes from Lion Clan. I think that bringing in the evolution of house cats from big cats and making it fit into the world is really great world building. I really like how they established this in the first book. I did not even realize that they established this in the main books at all. I remember hearing about Tiger Clan and Lion Clan and Leopard Clan from like field guides that have been put out, which I may or may not read on this podcast, like way later down the line. But anyway. Lionheart pauses. "You are a Shadowclan apprentice, aren't you? How many moons are you?" The tabby stared awkwardly down at the ground. 6 moons, he stammered, not meeting Lionheart's eye. "Rather small for 6 moons, Lionheart murmured. His tone was gentle, but his gaze was searching and serious. "My mother was small too," answered the tabby nervously. He bowed his head and backed away, disappearing into the crowd of cats with a twitch of his light brown tail. This feels important somehow. Lionheart turned to Firepaw and Greypaw. "Well, he might be small, but at least he was curious. If only you two showed as much interest in the stories your elders tell. Sorry, Lionheart, Firepaw and Greypaw mewed, exchanging doubtful glances. Lionheart grunted good-naturedly. Oh, go away, the pair of you. Next time I hope Bluestar decides to bring apprentices who appreciate what they hear. And with a half-hearted growl, he chased them away from the group. This is a great character-building scene for Lionheart, and it gives him more depth than just, like, a mentor figure for both Firepaw and Greypaw, and it establishes him as, like, a more well-rounded character, which I really like. Greypaw tells Firepaw, come on, let's see what Ravenpaw's gotten into. Ravenpaw is in the middle of a group of apprentices who want him to tell them what happened in the battle with RiverClan. Ravenpaw spots Firepaw and Greypaw and acknowledges them with a flick of his tail. He stumbled a bit at first, but as he continued, the tremor disappeared from his voice and his audience leaned in, their eyes growing wider. Fur was flying everywhere. Blood spattered the leaves of the bramble bushes, bright red against green. I just fought off a huge warrior and sent him squealing into the bushes when the ground shook, and I heard a warrior scream. It was Oakheart. Redtail raced past me, his mouth dripping blood and his fur torn. Oakheart is dead, he howled. Then he rushed off to help Tigerclaw as he fought another warrior. Who would have thought Ravenpaw was such a good storyteller? Greypaw murmured to Firepaw, sounding impressed. But Firepaw was thinking of something else. What was it Ravenpaw said? That Redtail had killed Oakheart? But according to Tigerclaw, Oakheart had killed Redtail, and he, Tigerclaw, had killed Oakheart in revenge. Now wait a minute. Somebody's lying. And we don't know who. Comment who you think is lying in the comments if you don't know what happens. I'm not going to spoil anything. Firepaw says, if Redtail killed Oakheart, who killed Redtail? If who did what? Greypaw echoed absent-mindedly. He was only half listening to Firepaw. Firepaw shook his head to clear it. Ravenpaw must have been mistaken, he thought. He must have meant Tigerclaw. Ravenpaw was coming to the end of his story. Finally, Redtail dragged the wailing cat off Tigerclaw by his tail and, with the strength of the whole of Tigerclan, flung him into the bushes. A moving shadow caught Firepaw's eye. He glanced around and saw Tigerclaw standing a short distance away. The warrior was watching Ravenpaw with an iron stare. Unaware of his mentor's presence, Ravenpaw continued to answer question after question from his enthusiastic audience. What were Oakheart's dying words? Is it true that Oakheart has never lost a battle before? Ravenpaw replied promptly, with his voice high and clear and his eyes shining. But when Firepaw glanced back at Tigerclaw, he saw a look of horror and then fury creep over the warrior's face. Clearly, Tigerclaw wasn't enjoying Ravenpaw's story at all. Very, very suspicious. Firepaw is about to say something to Greypaw again, when a loud yowl signals all the cats for quiet. Ravenpaw stops his story and Tigerclaw turns away. Firepaw looks up to see where the yowl had come from. 3 cats are silhouetted against the moonlit sky on top of the great rock. There was Bluestar, Broken Star, and Crooked Star. But where's the WindClan leader? Firepaw asks, surely they won't start the meeting without Tallstar? Haven't you noticed there isn't a single WindClan cat here? Whispered a RiverClan apprentice on the other side of Firepaw. Firepaw notices that other cats are also noticing that WindClan is gone. One cat says, we can't start yet. Where are the WindClan representatives? We must wait until all the clans are present. Bluestar steps forward and says, cats of all clans, welcome. It is true that WindClan is not present, but Broken Star wishes to speak anyway. Oh, this should be good. Broken Star padded noiselessly up to stand beside Bluestar. He surveys the crowd for a few moments, his orange eyes burning. He takes a deep breath and began. Friends, I come to speak to you tonight about the needs of Shadowclan, and the gathering is immediately, they're not having it. Where is Tallstar? Where are the WindClan warriors? Broken Star stretches up to his full height and lashed his tail from side to side. As the leader of Shadowclan, it is my right to address you here. And then the crowd falls into an uneasy silence. All around him, Firepaw smells the acrid tang of fear. Broken Star continues. We all know that the hard time of Leafbear and late New Leaf have left us with little prey in our hunting grounds. But we also know that WindClan, RiverClan, and ThunderClan have lost many kits in the freezing weather that came so late this season. Shadowclan did not lose kits. We are hardened to the cold north wind. Our kits are stronger than yours from the moment they are born, and so we find ourselves with many mouths to feed and too little prey to feed them. The crowd, still silent, listened anxiously. The needs of Shadowclan are simple. In order to survive, we must increase our hunting territory. That is why I insist that you allow Shadowclan warriors to hunt in your territories. And the crowd is shocked by this. Share our hunting grounds? It is unprecedented. The clans have never shared hunting rights. Should Shadowclan be punished because our kits thrive? Yelled Broken Star from the Great Rock. Do you want us to watch our young starve? You must share what you have with us. White people be like, you have to be colonized. You can't not be colonized. I'm going to bring my wokeness into every single episode of this podcast. I don't care. Must, spat Small-Ear furiously from the back of the crowd. Must, repeated Broken Star. WindClan failed to understand this. In the end, we were forced to drive them out of their territory. Snarls of outrage burst from the crowd, but Broken Star's caterwaul rang loud above them. And, if we have to, we will drive you all from your hunting grounds in order to feed our hungry kits. Not good. There is instant silence. Broken Star knows he has every cat's attention, and continues. Each year, the two legs spoil more of our territory. At least one clan must remain strong, if all the clans are to survive. Shadowclan thrives while you all struggle, and there may come a time when you will need us to protect you. Tigerclaw says, you doubt our strength? I do not ask for your answer now. Broken Star ignored the warrior's challenge. You must each go away and consider my words. But bear this in mind. Would you prefer to share your prey, or be driven out and left homeless and starving? He's just blatantly breaking the warrior code here and threatening the entire forest, which is insane. Every cat at the gathering is looking at each other in disbelief. Crooked Star steps forward and says, I've already agreed to allow Shadowclan some hunting rights in the river that runs through our territory. RiverClan is shocked, horrified, and humiliated. One RiverClan cat says, we were not consulted. Crooked Star replies, I feel that this is best for our clan, and for all the clans. There are plenty of fish in the river. It is better to share our prey than to spill blood fighting over it. Small-Ear asks Blue Star if she's agreed to this outrageous demand. Blue Star says, I have made no agreement with Broken Star, except that I shall discuss his proposal with my clan after the gathering. Greypaw says, well, at least that's something. We'll show them we're not as soft as that yellow-bellied river clan. Broken Star spoke up again, his rasping voice sounding arrogant and strong after Crooked Star's surrender. I also bring news that is important to the safety of your kits. A Shadowclan cat has turned rogue and spurned the warrior code. We chased her out of our camp, but we do not know where she is now. She looks a mangy old creature, but she has a bite like Tigerclan. Firepaw's fur bristled. Could Broken Star possibly be talking about Yellowfang? He pricked up his ears, curious to hear more. She is dangerous. I warn you, do not offer shelter to her. And, Broken Star paused dramatically, until she is caught and killed, I urge you to keep a close eye on your kits. This is very interesting and suspicious, especially considering what happened last episode with Yellowfang and the ThunderClan kits. Firepaw knew from the nervous growl that rumbled in the throats of the ThunderClan cats that they too had thought of Yellowfang. The bold she-cat had done nothing to endear herself to her reluctant hosts, and Firepaw guessed it wouldn't take much to drum up hatred against her. Even the words of a despised enemy like Broken Star would be enough. The Shadowclan warriors began to push their way out of the throng of cats. Broken Star leaped down from the rock, and his warriors immediately surrounded him and escorted him away from 4 trees, back into Shadowclan territory. The remaining Shadowclan cats followed quickly behind, including the undersized tabby Lionheart had questioned earlier. But among the other Shadowclan apprentices, the tabby no longer looked unusually small. They all looked tiny and undernourished, more like kits of 3 or 4 moons than full-fledged apprentices. Is Broken Star building a child army? Because that is even more insane. Greypaw says, what do you think of all that? Ravenpaw comes over and says, what's going to happen now? And he's panicking. The elders of ThunderClan are gathering nearby, and Firepaw is straining to hear what they were saying. Small-Ear says, that must be Yellowfang he was talking about. Speckletail, one of the oldest nursery queens, says, well, she did snap at Goldenflower's youngest kit the other day. And we've left her behind with the camp virtually unguarded, wailed One-Eye, who for once seemed to be having no trouble hearing everything. Narrator is just shading her. Darkstripe says, I tried to tell you she was a danger to us. Blue Star has to listen to reason now and get rid of her before she harms any of our young. Tigerclaw says, we must return to camp at once and deal with this rogue. Firepaw didn't stop to hear more. His mind was spinning. Loyal as he was to his clan, he just couldn't believe the Yellowfang would be a danger to kits. Frightened for the old she-cat, burning with questions only she could answer, he raced away from Greypaw and Ravenpaw without a word. He charged up the hillside and pelted through the forest. Had he been mistaken about Yellowfang? If he warned her about the danger she was in, would he be risking his own position in ThunderClan? Whatever trouble he got himself into, he had to find out the truth from her before the older cats got back to the camp. And that's the end of chapter 11. Chapter 12. We get into chapter 13. Firepaw reaches camp. There's still time to speak to Yellowfang before the others return from the gathering. The camp is still and quiet, apart from sleeping cats. Firepaw creeps around to Yellowfang's nest. Yellowfang, he hissed urgently. Yellowfang, wake up, it's important. 2 orange eyes opened and glinted in the moonlight. I wasn't sleeping, meowed Yellowfang quietly. She sounded calm and alert. You came straight from the gathering to me? That must mean you've heard. She blinked slowly and looked away. So Broken Star kept his promise. What promise? Firepaw felt very confused. Yellowfang seemed to know more than he did about what was going on. Shadowclan's noble leader promised to drive me from every clan territory, Yellowfang replied dryly. What did he say about me? He warned us that our kits were in danger as long as we sheltered the Shadowclan rogue. He didn't say your name, but ThunderClan guessed who he was talking about. You must leave before the others get back. You're in danger. You mean they believed Broken Star? Yellowfang flattened her ears and swished her tail angrily. Yes, Firepaw meowed urgently. Darkstripe says you're dangerous. The other cats are scared of what you might do. Tigerclaw is planning to come back and... I don't know. I think you should go before they get here. In the distance, Firepaw could hear the yowls of angry cats. Yellowfang struggled stiffly to her paws. Firepaw gave her a nudge to help her up, his mind still spinning with questions. What did Broken Star mean when he warned us to keep a close eye on our kits? He couldn't stop himself from asking. Would you really do something like that? Would I what? Would you harm our kits? Yellowfang flared her nostrils and looked steadily at him. Do you think so? Firepaw met her gaze without flinching. No, I don't believe you would ever harm a kit. But why would Broken Star say such a thing? The clan cats are coming nearer, with a sense of aggression and anger. Yellowfang doesn't move, but looks wildly from side to side. Firepaw urges her to go, but Yellowfang remains where she was, and a calm look comes into her eyes. Firepaw, you believe I'm innocent, and I'm grateful for that. If you believe me, then others might. And I know Blue Star will give me a fair hearing. I can't run forever. I'm too old. I shall stay here and face whatever your clan decides for me. She sighed and sank down onto her bony haunches. But what about Tigerclaw? What if he is headstrong, and he knows the power he has over the other clan cats. They are in awe of him, but even he will obey Blue Star. And she might be right about this. The cats are almost at the entrance. Yellowfang says, Go away, don't make trouble for yourself by being seen with me now. There is nothing you can do for me. Have faith in your leader and let her decide what happens to me. Firepaw realized Yellowfang made up her mind, so he leaves. The clan cats come through the entrance. Blue Star, then Lionheart, then Frostfur and Willowpelt. Frostfur raced away from the troop immediately and ran toward the nursery, the fur on her tail bristling in alarm. Tigerclaw and Darkstripe follow, and then all the others are coming in behind them, with Ravenpaw and Greypaw at the rear. Firepaw meets his friends. Greypaw asks him if he went to warn Yellowfang. Firepaw says yes, but she won't leave. She trusts Blue Star to treat her fairly. Did anyone miss me? Ravenpaw says, only us. Around the camp, the cats who stayed behind begin to wake up. They must have scented aggression and heard tense voices. A tabby warrior named Running Wind asks what happened. Longtail says, Broken Star has demanded hunting rights for Shadowclan in our territory. And he warned us about a rogue cat who will harm our kits, added Willowpelt. It must be Yellowfang. Blue Star calls for silence. A loud screech made every cat turn its head toward the fallen tree where the elders slept. Tigerclaw and Darkstripe were dragging Yellowfang roughly from her nest. She shrieked furiously as they hauled her into the clearing and dumped her in front of the high rock. Firepaw felt every muscle in his body tense. Without thinking, he dropped into a low crouch, ready to spring at Yellowfang's persecutors. Greypaw says, Wait, let Blue Star deal with this. Blue Star says, What's going on? I gave no order to attack our prisoner. Tigerclaw and Darkstripe let go of Yellowfang. Frostfur appears from the nursery and says, We got back in time. The kits are safe. Blue Star snaps back and says, Of course they are. Frostfur is taken aback and asks, But you are going to throw Yellowfang out, aren't you? Darkstripe says, Throw her out. We should kill her now. This bro is obsessed with killing. I'm not a fan. Like, he's just irritating. Like, I know him and Tigerclaw are buddy-buddy. Tigerclaw, at least, is just interesting and kind of hard to sort of pinpoint and figure out. Darkstripe's just annoying. Like, he would be like a Reddit incel, honestly. Blue Star asks Darkstripe, and what has she done? Darkstripe says, You were at the gathering. Broken Star said only that there was a rogue somewhere in the woods. Meowed Blue Star, her voice menacingly quiet. He did not mention Yellowfang by name. The kits are safe. For as long as she is in my clan, Yellowfang will not be harmed in any way. Her words are met with silence, and Firepaw heaves a sigh of relief. Yellowfang looks up at Blue Star and says, I will leave now if you wish it. Blue Star says, There's no need. You've done nothing wrong. You will be safe here. And then she addresses the clan again. It is time we discuss the real threat to our clan, Broken Star. We have already begun to prepare for an attack by Shadowclan. We'll carry on with those preparations and patrol our borders more frequently. WindClan has gone. RiverClan has given hunting rights to Shadowclan warriors. ThunderClan stands alone against Broken Star. A murmur of defiance rippled through the cats, and Firepaw felt his fur prickle with anticipation. Then we're not going to agree to Broken Star's demands, meowed Tigerclaw. Clans have never shared hunting rights before, Blue Star answered. They have always managed to support themselves in their own territories. There is no reason why this should change. Tigerclaw nodded approvingly. But can we defend ourselves against a Shadowclan attack? Asked a small ear's tremulous voice. WindClan didn't manage it. RiverClan won't even try. Bluestar met his old eyes with her steady gaze. We must try. We will not give up our territory without a fight. All the cats nod in agreement. Bluestar says she'll travel to the Moonstone tomorrow. The warriors of StarClan will give her the strength she needs to lead ThunderClan through this dark time. You must all get some rest. We have a lot to do when daylight comes. And she wants to talk to Lionheart. Firepaw notices a look of wonder among the cats when Bluestar mentioned the Moonstone. What's the Moonstone? Firepaw asked Greypaw. It's a rock deep underground that shines in the dark, whispered Greypaw. His voice was hoarse with awe. All clan leaders have to spend one night at the Moonstone when they are first chosen. There, the spirits of StarClan share with them. Share what with them? Greypaw frowned. I don't know, he admitted. I know only that the new leaders have to sleep near the stone, and as they sleep, they have special dreams. After that, they have the gift of 9 lives and take the name Star. This seems to be the main way to communicate with StarClan, through the Moonstone. I like how they also briefly explain how leadership works. The gift of 9 lives is also pretty, comical, considering everyone's like, oh, cats have 9 lives, and then in this universe, if you're a leader, you literally get 9 lives, and we shall see how that ends up working. Firepaw watches Yellowfang limp back to her nest. It looks like Tigerclaw's rough treatment aggravated her old injury. Firepaw decides to ask Spotted Leaf for more poppy seeds in the morning. Dustpaw comes up to them and asks what happened, and his resentment of the new apprentices is put aside after what just happened at the gathering. Greypaw starts explaining what happened at the gathering to Sandpaw and Dustpaw, but Firepaw is paying attention to Bluestar and Lionheart sitting outside her den talking urgently. And then he noticed the small shape of Ravenpaw at the entrance to the warrior's den. Tigerclaw stood beside him. Firepaw saw Ravenpaw's ears flatten as the young cat flinched away from Tigerclaw's fierce words. The dark warrior loomed over him, twice his size, his eyes and teeth flashing in the moonlight. What was he saying to Ravenpaw? Firepaw was just about to creep nearer and listen when Ravenpaw backed away, turned, and ran across the clearing. Firepaw greeted Ravenpaw as he reached the apprentice's den, but Ravenpaw hardly seemed to notice him. Instead, he pushed his way inside the den without a word. I wonder why Ravenpaw is so scared. Lionheart approaches and says, well, it seems that Firepaw, Greypaw, and Ravenpaw are about to reach another important stage in their training. Bluestar wishes you 3 to accompany her on her journey to the Moonstone. Dustpaw and Sandpaw look disappointed, but he says, don't worry, you 2, you'll make the journey soon enough. For now, ThunderClan needs your strength and skill at the camp. I will remain here also. Firepaw wonders why Bluestar had chosen him for this journey. Lionheart says she wants you to rest now, but first go to Spotted Leaf and collect the herbs you will need on this expedition. It's a long way. You will need something to give you strength and quell your appetite. There will be little time for catching prey. Lionheart then asks where Ravenpaw is. Firepaw says he's in his nest. Lionheart says, good, leave him to sleep. You can fetch herbs for him. Rest well, you leave at dawn. Sandpaw says, well then, you better go and see Spotted Leaf. Firepaw listened for sourness in her voice, but there was none. There was no time for jealousy now. All the cats in the clan seemed to be united against the threat from Shadowclan. Firepaw and Greypaw go to Spotted Leaf's den. Spotted Leaf seems to be expecting them and says, you've come for some traveling herbs. Firepaw says, yes, and I think Yellowfang needs more poppy seeds. She seems to be feeling her wounds. Spotted Leaf says she'll take her some, and she indicates piles of carefully made leaf wraps and says, enough for the 3 of you. The dark green herb will stop your hunger pangs during the journey. The other will give you strength. Eat them both just before you leave. They're not as good as fresh prey, but the taste won't last long. Thanks, Spotted Leaf, mewed Firepaw. He leaned down and picked up one of the parcels. As he bent his head, Spotted Leaf stretched over and gently rubbed his cheek with her nose. Firepaw breathed in her sweet, warm scent and purred his thanks. This is starting to get weird and feel like she's kind of grooming him. It definitely felt like just a silly kind of crush at first, but now she's getting to be kind of grooming, which is not good. So they take their herbs back to their den. Greypaw hopes they don't taste too bad. Firepaw says it must be a long way to the Moonstone. We've never been given herbs before. Do you know where it is? Greypaw says it's beyond clan territory at a place called High Stones. It lies deep underground in a cave we call Mothermouth. Firepaw asks if he's been there before. Greypaw says no, but all apprentices have to make the journey there before they become warriors. I don't remember this at all. I don't remember this being a thing at all. Probably because the Erin's team has not wrote about this consistently. I think they forgot that this was a thing. Firepaw thinks about becoming a warrior and starts to get excited. Greypaw says, don't get your hopes up, we still have to finish our training. Firepaw looked up through the canopy of leaves at the stars glittering in the black sky above. Moon high had passed. We should get some sleep, he mewed. but he couldn't imagine being able to sleep with the thought of tomorrow's adventure spinning through his mind. Attending the gathering, a journey to the Moonstone, how far away his kitty pet life seemed now. And that's the end of chapter 13. Alright, chapter 14. The cold air chilled Firepaw's bones as blackness wrapped itself around him. He could hear nothing, and his nostrils were filled with the musty scent of damp earth. Out of nowhere, a brilliant ball of light flared in front of him. Firepaw ducked his head, screwing up his eyes against the glare. The light shone, dazzling coldly like a star. Then it blinked out, disappearing as quickly as it had come. The darkness fell away, and Firepaw found himself in the forest. He felt comforted by the familiar smells of the woods. He breathed in the moist green scents, and calmness flowed through his body. Without warning, a dreadful noise burst from the trees. Firepaw's fur bristled. It was the screeching of terrified cats racing out from the bushes up ahead. Firepaw recognized their ThunderClan pelts as they fled past him. He stood rooted to the spot, unable to move. Then came great cats, huge dark warriors, their eyes glittering cruelly. They thundered toward him, pounding the earth with massive paws, their claws unsheathed. And out of the shadows, Firepaw heard a high, desperate cry filled with grief and rage. Greatpaw! No, not his boyfriend! Firepaw wakes up from his dream. As he opens his eyes, he sees Tigerclaw peering into the den. Tigerclaw asks, something wrong? Firepaw says, just a dream. Tigerclaw gives him a curious look and then says, wake the others, we leave shortly. It's dawn outside. It'd be a warm day once the sun was up, but the early morning dampness reminds Firepaw that the time of leaf fall is not far off. Firepaw and his friends gulp down the herbs that Spotted Leaf had given them. Tigerclaw and Bluestar are ready to leave. Ugh, complained Greatpaw. I knew they'd be bitter. Why couldn't we eat a fat, juicy mouse instead? These herbs will keep your hunger at bay longer, answered Bluestar, and they will make you strong. We have a long journey ahead of us. Have you eaten yours already? Firepaw asked. I cannot eat if I'm going to share dreams with StarClan at the Moonstone tonight, replied Bluestar. I don't remember this being a thing either. There's some details from these early books that I wish had been just continued on or mentioned in later books or super editions or anything. I think every writer who joins the Erin's team should be required to read at least the first 6 books of the Warrior series. Firepaw is itching to begin the journey, so they make their way through the Gorse Tunnel and out of camp. Lionheart wishes them a safe journey. Bluestar says, I know I can trust you to keep the camp safe. Lionheart looks at Greatpaw and says, remember, you are almost a warrior. Don't forget what I have taught you. Greatpaw says, I will always remember, Lionheart, and nudges him affectionately, which is a really cute moment. They retraced their route to Four Trees. This was the quickest way to pass into WindClan territory. High stones lay beyond. As Firepaw bounded down the side of the glade toward the great rock, he could still smell the scents of last night's gathering. He followed the others through the grassy clearing and up the slope on the other side, into WindClan territory. The bushy slope became steeper as they climbed, and rockier, until the cats had to leap from boulder to boulder up the side of a craggy cliff face. Firepaw paused when they reached the top. Ahead of them, the ground flattened out into a wide plateau. The wind blew in a steady gust that rippled the grass and bent the trees. The soil was stony, and outcroppings of bare rock dotted the landscape here and there. The air still carried the scents of WindClan, but they were stale. Much fresher and more alarming were the pungent markings of Shadowclan warriors. Bluestar says all clans are entitled to safe passage to the Moonstone, but Shadowclan seems to have no respect for the warrior code anymore, so be alert. We mustn't hunt outside our territory. We'll follow the warrior code even if Shadowclan doesn't. They set off across the plateau. Tigerclaw stops and says, I smell a Shadowclan patrol. Bluestar says they're upwind. They won't know we are here if we keep moving, but we must hurry. If they move ahead, they'll detect us. It's not far to the edge of WindClan territory now. They move on. The Shadowclan patrol eventually turns back because they don't get caught. Finally, they reach the edge of the uplands. The landscape changed dramatically, shaped and altered beyond recognition by two legs. Wide earth tracks crisscrossed green and golden meadows, small woods dotted the land, and two-leg nests were scattered here and there among the fields. In the distance, Firepaw saw a familiar wide gray path, and an acid tang that stung his throat drifted on the breeze. He asks Greatpaw if that's the Thunder Path. Greatpaw says yes, it runs up from Shadowclan territory. Can you see high stones beyond it? Firepaw sees the land rise sharply up to a point, jagged and barren. He asks if they have to cross the Thunder Path. Greatpaw says yes. Bluestar says, come on, we can be there by moonrise as long as we keep up the pace. So they keep walking. They walk past a two-leg nest, and they hear barking, and it's dogs. And Tigerclaw says, it's all right, they're tied up. Firepaw looked at the two dogs scrabbling on the stone barely 10 tail lengths away. They were nothing like the pampered pets that lived in the gardens of the two-leg place. These creatures stared at him with wild, killing eyes. They strained at their ties and reared up on their hind legs. They growled and barked, their lips drawn back to reveal huge teeth, until the shout of an unseen two-leg silenced them. The cats moved on. The sun is beginning to sink by the time they reach the Thunderpath. Tigerclaw says, "We'll go one at a time. Ravenpaw, you first." Bruh, he's low-key trying to kill him. Bluestar says, "No, I'll go first. Don't forget, this will be the first time of crossing for the apprentices. Let them see how it's done." Firepaw stared at his leader as she padded to the edge of the Thunderpath and looked up and down. She waited calmly as one monster after another flew past her, ruffling her fur. Then, when the ear-splitting roar paused for a moment, she raced across to the other side. Tigerclaw says, "Off you go, Ravenpaw, now you've seen how it's done." Ravenpaw is noticeably scared and very hesitant. Tigerclaw says, "Go." Ravenpaw makes it across. Greypaw goes next and crosses safely. Then it's Firepaw's turn. Firepaw looked from Tigerclaw to the Thunderpath and then walked out from beneath the hedge. He waited at the edge as Bluestar had done. A monster was rushing toward him. Firepaw looked at the approaching monster. After this one, he thought, and waited for it to pass. Suddenly his heart lurched as he realized the monster had veered off the Thunderpath and was bumping along the grass. It was heading straight for him. A two-leg was jeering from an opening in its side. Firepaw leaped backward, claws out, battered by the storm of wind from the two-leg monster as it roared past him only a whisker away. He crouched, trembling in the dirt, and stared as it swerved back onto the path and disappeared into the distance. Through the roaring of blood in his ears, Firepaw realized the Thunderpath was quiet again, and he raced across, running faster than he'd ever done in his life. Greypaw says, "I thought you were fresh kill." Firepaw says, "Me too," and he's trying to stop shaking. Tigerclaw makes it across. Bluestar asks them if they want to rest, but they all say no. The cats carried on with Bluestar in the lead. The earth was darker on this side of the Thunderpath, and the grass felt coarser underpaw. As they approached the foot of high stones, the grass gave way to bare, rocky soil, dotted with patches of heather. The land sloped up now, toward the sky. Craggy rocks topped the slope, blazing orange in the sun. Bluestar chooses a rock to sit upon for all five of them to rest. She looks towards Mothermouth, and Firepaw looks up. The glare of the setting sun blinds him, and the slope was engulfed in shadow. They wait as the sun sets, and then Firepaw begins to make out the cave entrance, a square black hole that yawned darkly beneath a stone archway. And Bluestar tells them, "We'll wait here until the moon is higher. You should hunt if you're hungry, and then get some rest." Firepaw was pleased to have a chance to find food. He was starving now. Greypaw clearly felt the same and leaped away into a clump of heather, following the prey scent that was thick in the air. Firepaw and Ravenpaw followed him. Tigerclaw set off in the opposite direction, but Bluestar remained where she was. She sat still and silent, gazing unblinkingly at Mothermouth. The three apprentices gathered plenty of fresh kill. With Tigerclaw, they crouched on the stony hillside and feasted. But in spite of their easy hunt, no cat said much, and the air still felt thick with tension and anticipation. Afterward, the cats rested beside their leader until the warmth had seeped out of the rock on which they lay, and cold black shadows reached up on all sides. Only then did Bluestar call out, "Come, it is time." And that is the end of Chapter 14. And now we're going to get into Chapter 15. Sorry there hasn't been a lot of commentary this episode. There's a lot of just details to read out, and I want to make sure I get as much as I can, so you guys can follow along. Chapter 15. Bluestar begins to walk towards Mothermouth. Greypaw calls for Ravenpaw. Firepaw realizes Ravenpaw has hardly said a word the whole journey. He wonders if he's just worried about Shadowclan or if there's something else troubling him. Firepaw, I love you, but Tigerclaw is abusing Ravenpaw emotionally. It's valid for him to be upset. Plus, like that weird conversation they had earlier, something fishy is going on. They reach Mothermouth and peer inside. The blackness beyond the stone archway was darker than the cloudiest night. They cannot see a thing inside. Greypaw and Ravenpaw look nervous. Even Tigerclaw seems unsettled. He asks, "How will we find our way in such darkness?" Bluestar says she knows the way. "Just follow my scent." Ravenpaw and Greypaw, you will remain on guard outside. Firepaw, will you accompany me and Tigerclaw to the Moonstone? Firepaw felt a thrill jolt through him. What an honor. Firepaw glanced sideways at Tigerclaw. The warrior sat with his chin boldly raised, but Firepaw could detect a subtle fear scent coming from him. It grew stronger as Bluestar stepped forward into the blackness. I'm shocked that Tigerclaw can feel fear at all. Inside, his eyes still detected nothing. The complete and utter blackness felt strange, but he was surprised to find that he wasn't frightened. His eagerness to discover what lay ahead was stronger. The cold, damp air reached through his thick fur and into his bones, stiffening his muscles. Even the coldest nights did not hold the same chill as the air here. This ground has never known the warmth of the sun, thought Firepaw, feeling the rock smooth like ice beneath his paws. Freezing air filled his lungs with each breath until he felt lightheaded. He followed Bluestar and Tigerclaw through the darkness, judging his way by scent and feel alone. They were walking along a tunnel that sloped down and down, winding first one way and then the other. Firepaw's whiskers brushed the side of the cave, telling him where to walk and where to turn. His nose told him that Bluestar and Tigerclaw were only a tail length ahead of him. On and on they went. How far have we come? Firepaw wondered. Then he felt a tingle in his whiskers. The air in his nostrils seemed fresher than before. He sniffed again, relieved to smell the familiar world above. He could smell peat and prey and the scent of heather. There must be a hole somewhere in the roof of the tunnel. Bluestar says, "We've entered the cavern of the moonstone. Wait here, it will be moon high soon." So they all sit down and wait. Suddenly, in a flash more blinding than the setting sun, the cave was lit up. Firepaw's eyes were wide open after the blackness of the tunnel. He closed them quickly against the cold white light. Then slowly he opened them into tiny slits and peered ahead. He saw a gleaming rock, which glittered as if it were made from countless dewdrops. The moonstone! Firepaw looked around. In the cold light reflected from the stone, he could make out the shadowy edges of a high-roofed cavern. The moonstone rose up from the middle of the floor, 3 tail lengths high. This is a lot smaller than what has been depicted by Warrior Cats artists. This rock is, huge. For video watchers, I'll put a couple of images up of some art I can find of the moonstone. 3 tail lengths is not very tall at all. That's not very big. But this rock is depicted as, massive by Warrior Cats artists. Anyway, Bluestar was staring upward, her fur bleached white in the glow of the moonstone. Even Tigerclaw's dark pelt shone silver. Firepaw followed Bluestar's gaze. High in the roof was an opening that revealed a narrow triangle of night sky. The moon was casting a beam of light through the hole, down into the moonstone, making it sparkle like a star. Firepaw smells Tigerclaw's fierce scent growing until it's overpowering. Firepaw wonders if he can see something else here that's dangerous. He hears the fleeing paw steps of Tigerclaw racing back to the entrance. I wonder why he is so scared. Bluestar asks if Firepaw's still here. He says yes. Bluestar says, "It's all right, don't be afraid." I think Tigerclaw was surprised by the power of the moonstone. In the world above, Tigerclaw is a fearless and mighty warrior. But down here, where the spirits of StarClan speak, a cat needs a different kind of strength. What do you feel, Firepaw? Firepaw says, "Only my own curiosity." Bluestar says, "That's good." Firepaw remembers his dream and realizes the moonstone is the brilliant ball of light he had just seen. Spellbound, Firepaw watched as Bluestar padded up to the stone and lay down beside it. She reached her head forward and touched the moonstone with her nose. Her blue eyes sparkled with its reflection for a moment before she closed them. Now she rested her head on her paws, her eyelids flickering, her paws twitching occasionally. Was she sleeping? Then Firepaw remembered Greypaw's words. New leaders have to sleep near the stone, and as they sleep, they have special dreams. He waited. The chill was not so intense here, but still he found himself shivering. He had no idea how much time had passed, but suddenly the rock stopped glowing. The cavern was plunged into darkness once more. Firepaw looked up to the opening in the roof of the cavern. The moon had passed on, out of sight. All that remained were tiny stars shimmering in blackness. Firepaw could make out the pale shape of Bluestar lying beside the moonstone. She says, "Firepaw, are you there?" Her voice sounded remote and agitated. Firepaw says, "Yes." She says, "Hurry. We must return to camp." She must have had a bad prophetic dream. Firepaw follows her out of the tunnel. Tigerclaw and the other apprentices are waiting outside. Bluestar greets him. Tigerclaw says, "What did you learn?" Bluestar says, "We must return to camp immediately." Firepaw saw a look of desperation in his leader's eyes. Now the horror of his dream forced its way back into his memory. The fleeing cats, the great dark warriors, the ear-splitting wail of distress. Firepaw tried to ignore the cold fear that gripped his muscles and followed Bluestar as she and the others raced down the dark slope away from Mothermouth. Was his nightmare vision about to come true? That's the end of chapter 15, and that's where we're going to stop for today. These chapters aren't super long, and there wasn't a ton to comment on, just kind of following along with the story. But based on this last paragraph we just read, it seems like ThunderClan is about to be attacked, perhaps by Shadowclan, since the attacking cats in the dream are described as dark. So this is really unfortunate timing if their leader is away from camp and they're being attacked. So we shall see what happens next time on the next episode of Cat Tales. Thank you for joining me. If you want to follow me on Twitter, my handle is @notcoffee1, and the O's are zeros. If you have any comments about this podcast, you can feel free to leave them. You can find Cattails on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I know I have very, very few listeners at this point, but if you made it this far into the episode and you're actually listening along, thank you. I'm not even doing this because, I want to get, a ton of followers. I love these books, and I love talking about them, and, yeah, it's just really fun for me. So, thank you guys so much, all, 3 of you who listen to this podcast. Yeah, feel free to, share this podcast around if you enjoy it. I would love to get more listeners. I mean, I feel like I'm begging on the side of the road for, change by saying this, but, I mean, this podcast does matter a lot to me. I want to keep going with it. See you next time.